Hello and welcome to Superpower Gaming. I'm your host, Kevin Castley, and this is another review of Twilight Imperium 4th Edition Discordant Stars fan expansion factions. And here we are, we're going to be taking a look at the Florzen Profiteers. Now, these guys share a similar theme to the Demone Flotilla that we covered last time, in that they have a specialty regarding exploration. Now, these guys are interesting for other reasons as well, and we'll get into it. But we'll take a note here. We got the faction colors in the background, as always. These guys are rocking blue and green. And look at that. We can see right off the bat, they start with 4 commodities. So we're doing something a little bit differently. We're starting with the full setup here in the beginning, and we'll go into the wiki sheet soon after here. But I wanted to kind of expand it out to start this off for this and future reviews, because I really like the aesthetics of Twilight Imperium, and I really like the aesthetics of these factions in the Discordant Stars expansion. These guys are like top tier as far as aesthetics go. I put them up there with like the Demone Flotilla. I put them up there with the Eden Mandate. I put them up there with the Titans. These guys just look cool. I put them up there with the Michael Mentori. These guys just look cool. They're like space squids. They're basically like, if you can imagine, if Joel Nar got giganticized and they took off the armor and they don't suffer that fragile ability anymore, these guys are ready to fight. So let's get into it with the Florzen Profiteers. Now, when we look here, we're going to start off with their starting units. And it's important to note these guys are 2C4I, so they start with 2 carriers. They start with 4 fighters. That's going to be somewhat important. They start with 4 infantry, and they start with 1 space dog. So a lot of the factions we looked at before this, they weren't 2C4I. They struggled in some areas. These guys are conventionally 2C4I. Problem, nothing heavier. They got no destroyers. They got no dreads. Of course, the Demone Flotilla had 2 dreads to start. These guys have 0. They got Bupkis when it comes to the heavy stuff. They're just out there to go and explore, basically. But they do have 4 fighters. That's going to be important. So their starting techs, they start with 2. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You know, you never really see 3 apart from Mandate, the Eden Mandate, and you only see 4 with Joel Nar. So really 2 is, for all intents and purposes, like the top tier when it comes to starting techs. And they're in green and yellow. Now, green's not that good, but having Neuromotivator already is good. Green has 2 good ones, which is Neural and Hypermetabolism. With the new Prophecy of Kings expansion and everything, they did introduce Biostims, which I like. And Psychoarchaeology can be good too. But really, when I think green, I'm thinking Neural and Hyper are like the big ones, unless you're a Sorrow. And they got some really good green tech specialties for their own faction. And as we'll see later on, the Latok Krask actually has a really good green pathway. But green, I'm not really going to go green with these guys probably. But it is important to have green, though, because that's going to let us get up to Fighter 2. And Fighter 2 requires 2 greens. So I'm right off the bat with these guys thinking about, if I'm going to play them, I'm going to look for a slice that features a green tech skip planet, so I can get right up to hypermetabolism. Because if I'm going to have to go between Biostims and Hyper, I'm going to try to get to Hyper round 1. That way we get the most use out of it. An average game of Twilight Imperium is going to go about 5 or 6 rounds, meaning if we can pop that off round 1, we might get 4 or 5 extra command tokens throughout the game. That's worth like, what, 15 influence. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. If we can tech skip up to that, that'd be pretty good. Now, let's take a look at their starting system. So their starting worlds are Delmore, which is a 2-1 planet, and Kid, which is a 1-2 planet. So that works out to a 3-3. You know, pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 2 planets, total 3-3, not bad. 4 commodities is good. It's actually really good. Complexity rating, as we've seen many times now in Discordant Stars, moderate. These guys have a bit of a fine-tuned sort of strategy. So let's take a look at their faction abilities. So at the start, this is mercenaries. At the start of a space combat, you may remove up to 2 fighters you control in a system adjacent to the active system. And it's important to note here because we start with 4 fighters and we got the 2 carriers to bring stuff out. So we can actually bring out all of our infantry, we can bring out all of our fighters and divvy them up between ships, between carriers, right? Because we're not just a 2C4I faction, we're a 2C4F faction. We got 4 fighters as well here. So really interesting initial unit allocation with these guys. So, and you're here, you're watching the video, you might be playing Discordant Stars. You want to win bigly with these guys. So how are you going to do it? Well, we're going to take advantage of mercenaries here. We don't actually have to bring the fighters into that system. We can still have those fighters protecting other systems. If we choose to engage in combat in an adjacent system, we can just bring those guys in. We don't actually need to have a means of transporting them there. Then, and this is the second part of the mercenaries ability, then choose one player participating in that combat. That player places the same number of fighters from their reinforcements in the active system. So basically, the way how this works is, you say you've got 2 fighters in an adjacent system. You can just remove them. You can spawn those 2 in that system that you're engaging in combat in, because you could choose yourself. Now, these guys are mercenaries. They're the Profiteers. The implication here is that you can do this for somebody else. Like, you can use your own fighters, which are only worth 0.5 trade goods each, right? And you got a lot of them to start with. You got 4 to start with. You can produce them on the cheap, right? You're going to be producing fighter 2s pretty soon, right? With these guys. What you can just do is be like, hey, look, I'll just get rid of 2 fighters. So basically a trade good worth of stuff. And I'm going to give you, whoever is attacking, if they're going into an adjacent system, and you just happen to have a couple fighters nearby, and you're going to want to spread these guys out. You're going to gum up the works with these guys. You're going to be in many different places with these fighters, right? I mean, it's only 1 trade good of value. You probably get more than 1 trade good back for that, to say, hey, look, I'll help you out here. I'll give these guys up as mercenaries. You can get an extra 2 fighters. That's big, right? HP often wins combats. Give you 2 fighters to soak up damage. You go in, take that system. But hey, like, I'll do it, but you're going to give me 2 trade goods, or you can give me a promissory note, or you're going to do something I want you to do, which is probably going to be worth more than 1 trade good, because you're just going to produce those fighters again next turn anyway. So that's a pretty cool faction ability. It really lets you engage diplomatically and also try to influence the combat trajectory of the game in the galaxy. The second faction ability, and these guys have 3 faction abilities, so that's cool too. So the second faction ability is data leak. When you would gain a relic, and I mentioned earlier, these guys have an exploration focus as well. When you gain a relic, you may draw 1 additional card that's from the relic deck. So that's like the best deck in the game. Choose 1 to gain and return the rest to the relic deck, then shuffle the relic deck. So this is like, it's really good. It's really good because you draw a relic. Some of those relics are extremely powerful. Others are, conventionally powerful. Some of them are meh. Depending on your situation, they might not be that useful to you. This gives you the option to be like, hey, no, look, I drew Mauve Worlds, but there aren't really any techs I want. But hey, I could go for something else, maybe get a victory point or something. Lets you see, it gives you an option. So you're pruning the best for your situation at the time. I really like that. That's a very powerful faction ability. And now that leads us into their third faction ability, which is the Shadow Markets. When you explore a planet, you may treat that planet as if it had the same trait as another planet you control. Now, this is really important because even Nazroka can't do this. They're big exploration faction, right? The Damone Flotilla can't do this. They're big exploration faction, right? Imperium, really big on frontier stuff. They can't do this. This is important because you might say, well, they've all got relics in them. They've all got good stuff in them. They've all got interesting stuff. Maybe Hazardous leans towards some pretty profitable stuff. If you got a mech there, that can be good. It actually doesn't matter whether you go hazardous, cultural, you go for industrial. What matters is how many relic fragments do you have in your play area in your hand, how many relic fragments do you have from a specific type? So like let's say you've got 2 industrial and you're about to explore a hazardous planet. Well, even if you have a mech there, so you get some good stuff out if you explored a hazardous planet, you're not going to have to be discarding infantry or whatever. Well, you might want to go for industrial. You might want to say, no, this is an industrial planet. Why? Because I'm going to get potentially that third industrial relic fragment, and boom, you got 3 green fragments, you're getting a relic. And then when we go to draw that relic, when we go to, purge those cards and say, I want to claim my relic here, we don't just get 1 relic card. We get to look at 2 relic cards with the data leak faction ability. And what does that let us do? That lets us get an even better relic, It might just be, you draw an additional card and it's kind of lame and you go with the one you would have had in the first place. Or it could be the one you go with in the first place is kind of lame and you might actually get something super powerful out of it. So these really blend well together. The Mercenaries one really gives us that strategic leeway to either boost our own standing into a combat, where say we don't have Fighter 2 yet, we can't independently transport these guys in. Adjacent system gives us that added bonus there. That's important early in the game. Most of the game we're probably going to have Fighter 2, so we can move these guys on their own. We can really use this to try to get money, try to get potentially promissory notes. If we're trading with Hakan, we could even get action cards. Like, we can use this. If we're playing as these guys, we need to sell this ability. We need to say, hey, look, 2 fighters might not sound like that much until you lose your space combat and your battle's messed up. So those 2 fighters can make a big difference. They can soak up hits from dreads. They can do a lot in the early phase of the battle to keep your fleet alive, to dish out the damage you need to do to take control of that system. And it is good both to get money or other goods from the other player, as well as to benefit our ally and hurt our opponent. If our opponent's encroaching on our territory, we can use this to boost up our buddy there that's going to go and kick them out. I think it's really cool. So let's take a look at the faction promissory note. This is the underworld market. Now this applies to another player. We're basically giving them the data leak ability, essentially. So it's very powerful. When you would gain a relic, you may draw 1 additional card. Choose 1 card to gain, return the rest of the relic deck, then shuffle the relic deck. Then return this card to the Florzen player. This is actually super powerful. Relics can be worth a lot. Depending on your table and everything, depending on what you draw, they could be worth a few trade goods. They could be worth many trade goods. Would I sell this away? Yeah, I would sell this. I would sell this for, probably 3 trade goods, 4 trade goods even. If you're in the comments, you play differently, you think it might be worth more, you think it might be worth less, feel free to comment and let me know. I think this is super powerful, especially if you're giving this to like the Nazaroka player or something if they're in the game. Or you're giving this to like the Imperium, somebody who's going to be getting, access to more relic fragments than your average bear. You got Demone Flotilla in the game, you give this to them. Look, if it's going to be somebody like that, like a faction that's really going through the relics and stuff, no, I'm going to charge them more because it's just such an advantage there that I would say, no, if you're like, you're Sardagnor or something and you're only got like a fragment or 2, yeah, I'll give it to you for, let's say, 3 trade goods. You might not even unlock a relic in the game. But if you're Nazaroka, you're going to have to pay up like 5 or something for that. I need to think on that one, but like, realistically speaking, this is very powerful. You might potentially be handing them a victory point out of it. I'm not doing that for cheap. So that's a very powerful faction promissory note. Let's move on to our faction technologies. This is the green tech. This is blackmail programs. When a player would perform a strategic action, you may exhaust this card and spend 1 token from your strategy pool to end that player's turn. The strategic action is not resolved and the strategy card is not exhausted. This requires 2 greens already. I'd probably go, if I got a green skip, I would jump from our starting neuro up to hypermetabolism as early as possible. But I can see an argument for biostims as well, depending on what other tech you're going to go with. If you might go down the AI dev route, for example, being able to tap that twice could be pretty good. That could be pretty potent, right? No, I don't think that this is that good of a technology. And the reason why is because the strategy card is not exhausted, so they're just going to use that next turn. So this is very situational. Then there might be a situation in which somebody might, I don't know, they're very close to winning, and if they pop Imperial, they can win the game. But if you do this, it stops them from that. Okay, but if you're in that situation, are you really going to win in one turn? They're probably just going to win the next turn anyway, right? So it's very situational. If it's not like a life or death situation like that, if it's not the 11th hour, are you really going to justify spending a strategy token, a token from your strategy pool, which like you're not going to have that many anyway, to just end their turn, but they're still going to be able to play the card and everything next time? To me, it's expensive. If it was something like exhaust a planet, even, or if it was just you know, take a token from your reinforcements or something. I understand that that could get spammed, but a token from your strategy pool is very costly. Like that could be 2 action cards, that could be a secret objective, that could be a technology, that could be there's a lot of secondaries. That could be a PDS. Am I really gonna give up a PDS so that I can just end this guy's turn for 1 turn and he's just going to use it next turn, he or she, right? I don't think so. I don't think so with that. Now, let's see. Okay, yes. So we're going to move on to faction specific units. When I mentioned Fighter 2 earlier, I forgot these guys actually start with basically Fighter 2. Like they can move without a carrier. So that whole thing about the adjacency earlier, it doesn't really affect them so much for themselves. It's more about benefiting an ally, essentially. So faction specific units. The Corsair one, it's a fighter. Cost 1, you produce 2. Combat 9, move 1, but it's got anti-fighter barrage. Their fighters have anti-fighter barrage. So that's really interesting because that's a cheaper way of getting AFB than even the Argent Flight, which that's their whole specialty, is pumping out destroyers, anti-fighter barrage stuff. That's pretty crazy. And what it does is it leads this faction into orienting towards potentially a red tech path. You start with yellow, you go plasma scoring. Now you're getting a second roll on anti-fighter barrage. Well, now you just double the odds you're going to hit with that. That's pretty potent. And then we're only 2 techs away from War Suns. If we got a red skip, we're 1 tech away from War Suns. We go for, let's say, for example, we go AI development algorithm, or we could go as well for assault cannon, potentially, if we're going to go for bigger fleets, right? Now, are these guys going to be that War Sun faction? Probably not, but they do have ways with mercenaries of getting money, and their relics allow them to get, access to more stuff. They're going to be exploring. When we look up here, they start with scan links, so every time they activate their systems, they're going to be able to explore planets. There's a potential they can save up some money, but War Suns are expensive, so you're going to need to have stored money in order to justify going for War Suns usually. So, but there's a path there. There's definitely a path there. I would prefer to go down red than to go up to blackmail programs personally. Let's take a look at Corsair 2. This has a movement of 3. That's insane. That's insane. Now it's prerequisite there is a green and a blue, I should say. So it will require us getting blue. So you could go anti-mass deflectors, or you could go dark energy tap. That's pretty situational. If you got asteroid fields to navigate and stuff, go anti-mass. If you don't, you might want to go dark energy tap, because you get some of those colorless relic fragments added with everything before. I mean, that just so stacks into your ability to pump out relics, right? That puts you competitive with like Nazroka right there. So anti-fighter barrage 8. Now, again, you go for plasma scoring, boom, And you do that, you're in 1 tech and 4 colors, right? You're going up on an objective. You got tech objectives out that can be helpful to you. So, these guys having a movement of 3 is just insane. Fighters in excess. Now, this unit may move without being transported. Very cool. Fighters in excess of your ship's capacity count against your fleet pool. Boom. So, you are going to need to put some command tokens into increasing your fleet size, right? Of course, right? But look, everybody has to do that. Everybody needs fleets, and these guys can produce pretty cool stuff for cheap. That's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the flagship. This is the Man of War. It's a cost of 8, rolls 2 dice, hits on 7s, movement 1, capacity 5. That's pretty big. Abilities: it's got sustained damage, and other players cannot play action cards during a space combat in the system. Boom. So they got morale boost. Boom. Can't do it. Shields holding. Can't do it. Sabotage. Can't do it. Direct hit. Can't do it. This, you don't even need Dread 2. You might get Dread 2, but you can basically, if your Dreads are with the flagship here, guess what? They're not going to be doing direct hit on you. You can just sustain damage. They're not doing direct hit on you. They can't play action cards during a space combat in this system. That's very powerful. That's up there with like the mechs of the Imperium, except they don't have to get rid of the mechs. That's really powerful. I mean, the combat's not great, but you're not really bringing this in here for the combat. You're bringing this in here to protect your dreads and your other stuff that's going to do sustain. If you got War Sons, for example, very good flagship. Let's take a look at the mech. This is the Privateer. You may spend influence's resources to produce this unit. It costs 2. It's got sustained damage and it hits on a 6. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, depending where you are, that can be pretty potent, but, not the most game-breaking ability. Leaders. Let's look at the leader suite. We start with Sal Gavda. He's the black market dealer. He's our agent. He's unlocked at the start of the game. His ability is, at the start of a player's turn, you may exhaust this card to allow that player to remove an attachment from a non-home planet they control and attach it to a non-home planet they control other than Mechatol Rex adjacent to that planet system. This is important because there are objectives that relate to attachments. There's, value that comes with attachments, and being able to move it around could be situationally important. It could also mean you got somebody coming for a particular system. You might not be able to hold that system. I'm just going to move the attachment over to a different system that's more well defended. Now they're not going to get that certain control objective. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, all in all, is that useful? Probably not, except when it could come in clutch, right? But there's definitely more powerful agents out there. Let's look at the commander. This is Quaxtol Junitas or Quaxtol Hunitas. I don't know. The Unseen Hand. He looks pretty cool. The agent looks super froggy. This guy looks really squiddy. So the unlock condition is have the outcome you voted for predicted on an agenda resolved. So, and its ability is after the second agenda is revealed during the agenda phase, you may ready 1 planet you control. Explore that planet if able. That's cool. That's cool because it means you get to spend extra influence in the first round because you're going to get that little bit back later on, and you're exploring with it. Boom, right there. And when you explore, you can treat it as whatever trait you want as you've got on other systems. That's very, very cool. And if you could pop a relic fragment from it, boom. Now, when you go to take a look at your relics, boom, there you are. You get to choose from 2 instead of just having your 1. That's very cool. Let's look at the hero. The hero looks awesome. I like that like blue, green, teal sort of, I guess more like a jellyfish almost. Like I see these guys as being like kind of squiddy, but this one definitely looks more like a jellyfish. Like the commander looks like a squid. The agent looks like a frog. This guy, the hero, looks like a jellyfish. This is glowing jellyfish in the depths. This is Banua Gohan, the administrator of mines. The unlock is have 3 scored objectives as per usual. Sleeper cells, shady acquisitions. The action is place 2 fighters from your reinforcements in each system that contains 1 or more planets you control and no other player's ships. Then you may remove one attachment from any planet in a system that contains one or more of your ships and attach it to one planet in your home system. Then purge this card. So this allows you to get those attachments, which are going to be important for scoring, going to give you extra value. It lets you move them to your home system, which is your easiest system to defend in theory, and it lets you bolster the production ability essentially with those attachments of your home system. That's cool. And if you've got double docked in your home system, you could have really good production going on there. Being able to place 2 fighters in each system contains one or more planets you control and no other player's ships. So if you're in like 6 systems, you get 12 fighters from this. You can get an insane number of fighters from this. That's a pretty cool hero. I mean, it's not game breaking. It's not going to win you a battle. It's not going to destroy another player's fleet like the Mahawk can. But it's going to bolster a lot of your fleets. It's going to potentially bolster your home system. It's going to make, if you got that control objective for attachments out there, it's going to make that easier to score. So I think these guys are kind of cool. I like their aesthetics. I like their 2 starting techs. I like the 4 commodities. I think these guys have the potential to generate a lot of trade goods from wheeling and dealing. I don't think they're the most powerful faction, though. I think they're going to struggle in producing units. I think these guys' big challenge is that they don't have heavy hitting ships to start with. Like, you're going to need to produce dreads. You're going to need to produce some destroyers and stuff. But now, granted, their fighters are pretty good. I mean, but if other people have assault cannon and stuff, you're still going to need to produce destroyers. So I like their fighters. So you're definitely going fighter 2 with these guys. I'd focus on red and blue, basically, like get hyper, and then boom, you're going for red and blue. Like, get out your plasma scoring. Now all these are double anti-fighter barrages. Now your fighters are comparable to some destroyers. That's the direction that I would go in. And I really can't say too much more, because the thing with this faction is that it's very much dependent on what you're going to draw from the relic deck and from the various exploration decks. All that I can really say is some advice is to probably go for dark energy tap as your first blue tech, right? And you're going to want to advance in blue tech here. But really, I don't know what you're going to draw. You can draw really good stuff. You can draw mid stuff. We don't know. What we do know with these guys is that you're going to be drawing a lot more than you would normally. So that's kind of their thing. It's very situational. So, it depends who you're up against. What are the resource allocations in the game? All I can really kind of say as a rule of thumb, go dark energy tap unless you got asteroids nearby, and start building some heavy ships. Try to get some money, wheel and deal, sell your abilities, and use that money to get some war suns so you can hit hard and protect your war suns with the Corsair 2s. So it's really some advice here. Again, I like the aesthetics of these guys. Very cool faction. But with that, we're going to be wrapping this up. So be sure to subscribe here at Superpower Gaming if you haven't yet. I'm going through every one of the Twilight Imperium 4th edition factions. And we're starting with Discordant Stars because there's a total dearth of content in the expansion here. And, I do other games as well. We do, of course, DEF CON. We got Fortnite, do Pokemon Go. And be sure to subscribe and check out my main channel, Superpower Broadcasting, for news and politics content. And follow me over on X at Kevin Castley. And so with that, I will see you in the next video. So take care and win bigly with these guys. Let me know how it goes. Peace.